Welcome everybody to Interesting AF or Interesting as Fuck. And we are back again today to talk about, this is our Doc is In episode, which is always so exciting because I learn new things and I see new things. And Elaine is our intrepid leader here on that. So it's really great. And even with this one, amazing, which, and let's repeat to everybody which one we're gonna be talking about. And this is the documentary called It Might Get Loud, which is basically three rock icons that sit down and have a conversation about how they started, how they deal with music, how they kind of do and then obviously a jam session in there. It has an 80% Rotten Tomatoes. It is basically on all platforms for purchase. And it runs about an hour and a half, an hour and 40 minutes, was released in 2009. And we are really excited to talk about it. Especially I'll talk about my what the fuck meter as well. But, Elaine, you are our musical expert here. And please, sound off, as it were, on
puns.
Should have a buzzer or something every time on this documentary and how much you love it.
Yes, I love this documentary. The first time I watched it was over 10 years ago. I actually forget that it came out as late or as long ago as 2009. But if you listen to any of our previous podcasts, I think I've mentioned, I know at least once and probably several times that I'm a big music fan. Oftentimes music from generations that I am not from. I know we've mentioned in our third place episode, I'm a big Deadhead. The Allman Brothers are my favorite band. Led Zeppelin is also one of my favorite bands. In fact, I'm representing today in my Led Zeppelin shirt in honor of one of the three. Yes, I am. In honor of one of the three legendary guitarists that was a part of this documentary. So as Linda mentioned, we watched It Might Get Loud, a little bit of a palate cleanser from our string of more intense documentaries.
You mean the stealing of art?
Yes, like a 3 weeks worth of stealing of art.
For any cops listening, that's not really, we're not thinking of that.
We didn't steal the art.
We didn't do it.
We didn't steal the art.
We didn't.
We just like a good heist.
Yep.
I'm too lazy and too tired all the time to actually ever consider doing that.
I know, right?
No need to worry.
No.
No need to worry.
Also, I would telegraph my plans. I can't keep my mouth shut.
Oh yeah. No. Me neither. I would be acting so weird. People would be like, "You're up to something. This is weird. Like, stop being weird." But so three legendary guitarists: The Edge from U2, Jack White of the White Stripes, the Rock-umentary, several bands, and then Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin, and earlier in his career, the Yardbirds. And I love the storytelling. I love a good rockumentary about the start of a band, particularly ones that I like or different genres of music. And even though I can't play the guitar, I have no interest in playing the guitar, I find it very interesting, the story behind how these legendary artists and musicians find their instrument and oftentimes become very loyal to the brand that they use. And so hearing the stories of just kind of not just how they found their guitars, but how they found their sound. So full disclosure, I am not a massive U2 fan.
Ditto.
No knocks if you are.
I will still.
I think we can all agree though. Apple.
Yeah. I will.
Apple. I'm still mad at Apple.
You didn't need to load. Also, I will never forgive Sing 2 for making me like you too.
Yes, It Might Get Loud was definitely pre-Sing and Sing 2. But the first time I watched this, I thought, well, this isn't even doing any favors for me in terms of liking you two, because there's particularly that one scene where the Edge is playing a sound, playing a riff, and he's like, "I'm actually just playing this." And when he takes like the sound machine off, it's just like strum, 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 like two notes. And I was like, "What? Like that's nothing." But this time around, I think I don't know what excuse me what changed, but I almost like I gave him a little bit more credit in terms of like he's still he still is an artist in the way that he found his sound. Like the way that he plays the guitar with his pedals and everything is like one of a kind. And I think too, and now I'm getting really in the weeds and real nerdy here. Oh, sorry. Um, is Mickey Hart of the Grateful Dead. Like he invented his own instruments and he just gets like super weird one part of every show called Space. And he's just making sound, but like it you feel it in your chest when you're in the room. And so I think I don't know, maybe 10 more years of touring with Dead and Company helped me like open my eyes and my respect a little bit to the Edge on that. Like he found his sound and that's very cool. Yeah, no knock to the U2 fans. I've met Bono. He's lovely, but like I like some of their
When the
songs and I
fuck
know
did
some
you
of their
meet
songs.
Bono?
I was
Like,
working on the hill. I was a little tiny
oh,
college baby.
oh yeah, of course. Did he pay for the pizza?
He did not pay for the pizza.
Do you remember that 30
He
Rock
did not pay for the
episode?
pizza. Yes. But also like I interned on the hill, I worked on the hill, and I was what is called a Senate doorkeeper on the hill at one point, which
Ah,
is like still to this day my favorite job ever. And anytime we had to be there past 10 o'clock at night, someone would inevitably buy us pizza
yeah.
so that we could eat and
Clearly.
not like file labor
Like issue,
disputes. Yeah.
which would have
So
been the
I met him up there.
Congress's least problem, least issue.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Back when I was on the hill and there didn't seem to be as many issues, but
yeah.
you know.
One of the things that I'm a big fan of conversation. And I think this
Mm,
at its heart is a conversation and an explanation of how people got where they are. Right? So
yes.
it's truly an introspection about, like you said, how they got to their sound, how they think their sound evolved throughout their careers. Um, and one of the things that I love the best, I think it's in their faces where it's like it's kind of a line between arrogance and trying to learn from each other. And it's there
Yeah.
because they're obviously super accomplished, right? I mean, it's it's like heavyweights,
Yeah.
right? While Jack White is definitely like the least like influential of the two others, but that's just give him time, right? That's just a time thing.
Hmm.
But I do think that's what I loved. I loved how sometimes there's like that arrogance about, well, I'm playing what I'm playing. And then the other one was, but I'm trying to understand where these, because they inevitably influence each other, right? Um,
Oh yeah.
and that's what I really, really loved is that interplay between humans and their connection and how it kind of messes with their own ego and their own understanding of themselves. And I think fundamentally, again, why we're here to talk about that connection. And it affects everything all the time. No matter if you think it's a rockumentary or a heist or whatever, we're always constantly trying to understand the dynamics between humans. Um, and you see that the most in the jam session, which by the way, I could not watch. I couldn't watch this documentary the whole way through all the time because not I watched it, but like I had to stop it because I would get goose. So I have there's something, and we were looking up studies on how many people get this because I believe Elaine also has this. Where like music, you have a physical reaction to music and specific things, and I just constantly like I there's so much physical reaction to the music that I had to stop. Obviously, when they were talking about their lives, it wasn't the same, but like I would listen to the blues and I'm like, okay, I gotta stop. And depending on, and I'm gonna be controversial because there's probably other studies that say the opposite. It's about 25% of people that get that. So it's not many people that feel that physical connection to art and to music. And so that's, I think one of the things that I appreciate and I really truly appreciate, it really touched me. Like I had a physical reaction to it. And I think that's the point of music, right? To make you feel something other than the thing, but than what you're feeling at the time. But yeah, great about that, like
Yeah,
that interplay.
I was scream singing every song. I mean, even not being a U2 fan, I still knew every song that they played. And Jack White has several songs that people know. I've never been a big follower of his either until I saw this for the first time, and then just was like keeping tabs on him because I truly think he is one of the most talented guitarists of all time. And then Jimmy Page, like, of course, like Led Zeppelin is easily in my top 10 favorite bands of all time. So like scream singing everything. But my two favorite scenes in this movie. The first one is kind of off what you were saying, Linda, when they're watching Jimmy Page just riff. To watch The Edge and Jack White, two of the greatest guitarists of all time, arguably. Watching Jimmy Page, who is oftentimes in the top 10 greatest guitarists on like Rolling Stone magazine, greatest guitarist of all time, or at least top 20. It was so fun. They were like little freaking kids watching him. And there was even a point where you catch Jack White like not trying to smile anymore because he's so dark and mysterious. But like, get the fuck out of here. You were smirking like a little child because you were like, I'm sitting 5 feet from Jimmy fucking Page, who is rocking out to Whole Lotta Love and Cashmere and fucking Stairway to Heaven. Like, are you kidding me? So I love that scene when the two of them are just kind of like, I mean, it would be like you and I in a room with Jimmy Page, just being like,
though, as I've mentioned to you, I would only be unself-possessed with one celebrity, and that is a Bollywood star.
Yes, I do know that.
There's just one person in the world, but I'd be really self-possessed.
Say the name in case someone can make that happen.
Shah Rukh Khan,
do it.
If you do it, I swear to God. And alternatively, Glenn Powell, but I only want to go to Glenn Powell if
he's new.
If he's new, but I'd be self-possessed, and I just want to go to that coconut cake party. Please, somebody invite me to that. When Tom Cruise sends over, and I'll take you with me, Elaine. Cake. I'll take you with me.
Yes.
We can both go.
Yes, please.
Anyway, yeah.
Only because like I know Tom Cruise is a controversial and questionable character, but I was in love with him when I was a child to the point where my 4th birthday was called Tea with Tom. And we had it at my grandparents' house because he had a house in the town over from there. And so our hopes were that if he got my invitation and he wanted to come, we made it that much more convenient for him. I'm not kidding. So I would go just to tell him that story and be like, you didn't come and I was devastated, but like, I wasn't mad at you until you got super weird about Scientology. But
and I love that story.
But I will still watch all your movies.
I love that story so much.
Yeah, that happened.
I love that story so much so that anytime you will have an event where I'm inevitably going to speak, even though I'm not on the list, make it like, a party about something. That story will be referenced every single time. And because I love Tom Cruise.
Yeah. So that's my Tom Cruise story. But yeah, the other scene that I'm going to need a what the fuck meter just of its own for this one scene is the opening scene of the movie. So I remember the first time watching it, just like you see the cows, you see Jack White, you see he starts nailing some shit in. And I remember turning to my husband and being like, no fucking way. No fucking way. And then, yes, fucking way. He makes a goddamn electric guitar, slide guitar, out of a Coke bottle, wood, some nails, and some string.
15. Because I screamed. I was
Yeah.
like, what? I was like, what? What did you just?
I'm putting it down.
I was like, just for that scene. Because I agree with you. It's at that opening. Though I will say the entire one, just because of the physical reaction, I have to give it like an 8 for the whole thing, the what the
Love
fuck
it.
meter. But that scene where I was like, what the fuck? What the what? What did you just do?
It's wild.
Wild.
Yeah.
Wild. And I mean,
Yeah.
and this is one of the things where, like, most people are like, oh, musicians, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, it has so many intricacies, so many
Mhm.
nuances, so many messages. I think we give a lot of disservice to the arts sometimes. We're like, well, yeah,
Hell yeah.
somebody's like paintings. And you're like, no, this is the truest form of expression that humans have ever had, really. They're always like, you know, I will do this to express myself. And it's the most amazing thing that people have ever had. And this, I think, does it in so many ways. So I loved that. And I loved how this documentary really honed in on that, right? It said, I'm gonna do
Yeah.
this and I'm gonna do this well. So I don't know. That was my thing. So I loved it.
Yeah. And again, like just some origin stories too, like, and them being able to tell it themselves. Jimmy Page starting in a pop band and then working his way into the Yardbirds. And then finding, becoming Led Zeppelin, which, like, let's talk about Robert Plant for 1 second. The lead singer of Led Zeppelin, who, like, that was one sexy motherfucker. Like, I'm not even talking about his face, like his just whole general being, where he constantly was in like the tight, like Freddie Mercury type pants, his shirt was always open, and that voice will just like murder you in the street and like get away with it. And I have to say, my level of respect for him is tenfold because so we saw him live in 20 actually we've seen him twice because again I think I mentioned there's a music festival we used to go to in Virginia called Lock-In. Please Peter Shapiro, bring that back. I miss it terribly. It was very like Deadhead, like classic rock focused, and he came and played several times. And like his voice is very unique. And I think a big problem that some artists have, because like they literally play until they die now, because why wouldn't you? But some of them need to maybe throw in the towel a little bit. And Robert Plant has not done that, nor does he need to, but he knows he can't be hitting those super high notes anymore. So he's found a way to like take those notes down an octave and still make it sound absolutely perfect. I love it.
Yeah, and I think that's and the narcissism is a big part of being a star. And I don't mean this like people take narcissism as like a really bad thing. But in order and it can be, right? Narcissism can
Yeah.
be a bad thing. But like in the arts, there's so much criticism that you face all the time. And I think this is the same true for politics, right? There's got to be
Oh yeah.
like a narcissistic voice there to counteract all the shittiness that you must like I only and you only have to look at now social media and the comments when you make a post about something. Imagine that, but like on a like it's just an infathomable scale even without social media, right?
Yeah.
You have all these people talking all these things, and I think that's what makes these greats that you kind of have to have the I'm not going to throw in the towel cuz I'm awesome. But at some point you got to do it. And so there's something else that needs to like overwin your narcissism. And I think that's one of the parts about understanding yourself and artists kind of doing that self-reflection through music. I think he had, Robert Plant has having like that thought process about, well, I don't he knows that he doesn't sound as well, so
Mhm.
he takes it down. He's like, I
Yeah.
can't do this anymore. And so there
My
is
voice is still strong to a point.
to a point. And I think that's, there's that like it's like that whole pragmatism versus like narcissism thing where he's like, well, I still want to do this and I'm going to do this. I sound great, but I need to make it sound better. Right? So I think that's what is yeah, I agree. I think there's some artists that like, you got to bye, see you later, but you're
I
doing
have
great.
some examples I won't call out because I still love them as musicians and artists,
Well,
but
we can't do that. I mean, people choose what they want to choose, and I definitely agree. But
exactly.
I think sometimes like the market does it for you in a way. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just this talking like it's just a conversation, and that's one of the best parts of it. I think for me, it was the jam session and the conversation and kind of the examination and like the breaking down of what a guitar means, what a note means, how a note is going to play within a song, what it meant externally at the time. Because there's a lot of things like, I didn't realize Jack White was from Detroit. Like, there's like a lot of things where
Mhm.
I'm like, what? Okay. And then like Jimmy Page went to art school because he was like, I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't know, I'm gonna like do this. And like the exploration of all of this stuff. And then going through and sort of divulging their secrets to other artists. Because and Jack White says that at first. He's like, I'm gonna trick them into telling me their secrets so I can do it. And I'm like, I don't think
Yeah.
I was like, Jack, I don't think you're writing anything down because you were super giddy. Like you were just like, think I think you missed your objective. But I think that's the thing. And in a way, like you see the archetypes of what musicians are, right? I think Jimmy Page is like the pioneer, right? The guy that kind of broke through some walls and like saw how music was changing and was like, I'm going to make my own sound. And then you have like the Edge that kind of rides the wave of the popularity and just makes it really, really popular. And then Jack White, to a certain degree, is like the pure artist, right? That he's kind of doing it for the
Yes.
love of what sound is and what guitar means. Cause, he plays obviously more than one instrument. Like for him, it's like the instrument is not the thing necessarily, even though obviously the focus on the guitars. But I think he's the one that's like the purest of them in the sense of he's like, I want to push the
I agree.
boundaries of what sound is, right? I want to push what what music means to people. It might not sound, and I think he talks about the blues aspect of how that pushed him into that direction. And I think he's a lot more bluesy than the rest of them. But I think that's kind of a mechanism of where he grew up, right? Detroit, he had a lot of
Absolutely.
influences that weren't just white influences. It was like black artists, brown artists. And I think you see that more in him than you see that necessarily in the Edge or Jimmy Page, only because of how they grew up, right? When you have England, when
Well,
you
and I was to say Jack White's the only one from the US, period.
that too, yeah. And I think, and we've talked about this, right? I think there's an innovation concept in the US much more stronger. And not that saying like Jimmy Page and the Age didn't innovate, they did. But I think
Right.
there is a concept of pushing the borders in the US to like something else that is much more part of the culture than,
Well,
you know,
we invented so many kinds of music here.
yeah,
Blues was invented
yeah,
here. In DC, we invented go-go.
yeah,
We invented all of these rap and hip hop started here. Like we started, and also we're also just so much bigger of a
yeah,
country that we have so many different influences versus like Ireland or England as well. Not to say they don't have amazing
of
influences,
course.
but I think some of that comes to play in it too. I just also love the idea that like, yes, they all like Hollywood, and I know Hollywood is more, movies, TV, but like you think celebrity is a small world, but it is still pretty big. So like I like to, Jimmy Page and The Edge probably a little bit more connected, and they've probably all been in the same room, but in a massive room at a big event, right? Like I highly doubt the three of these men ever sat down together
Yeah.
in this type of setup. So I think that was part of it too, where like Jack White has probably, they all have to have that little bit of narcissism where he's like, I'm fucking Jack White. I'm awesome. That's why I'm here. But at the same time, that's why you could see the giddiness in both of them to be like, yeah, I'm Jack White, but I'm fucking sitting around riffing with goddamn Jimmy Page and The Edge.
Yeah.
Like, this is fucking awesome, right?
Yeah.
And they were probably thinking the same thing. Like, yeah, I might be Jimmy Page, but like Jack White is the next generation of great guitarists. Like, I can't believe I'm sitting, so you could, and I loved that you could see that. It's almost like the egos, again, you have to have ego and all that. And we've been around enough politicians to know that that's a thing. But I will also add that, like, yes, you have to have a bit of an ego and narcissism to be a celebrity, to be a politician, to be whatever. But then, like, we create an environment that just allows that feeds the ego and narcissism to where it can turn bad, right? Because everybody's there to cater to them. They never have to do their own shit. Like,
Yeah.
So there's both sides of it. But I love that all of that was kind of like cast aside when the three of them were just in the room together.
And I love the close-ups to their faces.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was, it was like they would move to each other as like the others were like playing, and it was individual but communal at the same time, and just like really, really great. You felt like you were looking at something that you weren't going to see again, type of thing. Like it felt special. And I think that's kind of one of the things, right? It felt like an experience. Like this documentary felt like an experience as opposed to me looking at a heist or watching a story unfold in front of me. This was something that you sit there and you go, wow, this is something I needed to see. Even though, like, and we've talked about this before, rock and roll I like. I mean, it's not, I kind of listen to a lot of music, but it's not my thing, like my specific thing.
Yeah.
But any music lover would sit down and watch this documentary and go, I get this. This is amazing.
Yeah.
This is
totally
what music should be in its purest sense. And that's in that, and understanding artists in a much more literal way, because I don't think I think people dismiss these things. They're like, oh, this is easy. Anybody can play the guitar. And you're like, a little bit more complicated.
Not like that. Oh, but the idea of playing an instrument and singing at the same time, where like the instrument is playing a completely different count than what the singing is, like there ain't no fucking way. I can do a lot of things and I can multitask. I can't do that.
Nope.
I don't even want to try it.
Mm-mm.
No, thank you. But yeah, I think part of the experience, though, I think was because it was intimate. Like that's the word that I think of, where like at first I was like, voyeuristic isn't the right word because it seems like you're like in on a private conversation. It's just the fact that it was intimate that makes it feel like almost like warm and cozy. Like, oh, I'm like in there. I'm like the fourth seat, right? Like there's a fourth seat and I'm in it and I'm just not saying anything.
Yeah.
So kind of how we hope like you're listening to this, right? Like there's a third seat and you're in it and you're just sitting here having a conversation.
And you're like, these bitches won't shut up.
Of course, give me a turn.
Give me a turn.
Speaking of egos.
Yes. Ooh. I mean,
just messy.
Yeah. And then us sending each other like empowering memes is probably not.
Pick yourself up the floor. You've got this.
And we're like, we've never been on the floor. Like we're doing.
Meanwhile, I'm sitting on the floor right now as we speak. It's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine. We're not losing our fucking minds ever.
Jesus Christ.
God bless.
It's also really cold.
Yeah, so cold.
Ugh. It's so cold.
I hate winter.
It's going to be even colder next week.
Yeah.
I don't mind winter. I'm a December baby, so I don't mind winter.
Fair.
But
I just
also like grew up in a place with 4 seasons. So I don't mind it but if it's cold, there better be snow. And we have more snow on the ground than we've had in like that's stuck around.
Yeah.
In over a decade.
Really?
It's been more.
It's been a decade for that? Oh, I didn't realize. I
Usually,
didn't realize that.
so we've had a good snowstorm, like, right? Like
Yeah,
once a year, but then it's like 60 degrees the next day and it all
that's
melts.
true. That's true.
Even this was probably 10 years ago. We had a blizzard that dumped like 4 feet of snow in one day. It was all gone the next day because it was 60 degrees. I remember being in a t shirt shoveling the driveway.
That's true. I remember that. Those are wild. Yeah, climate change isn't real.
It's not real, guys. It's not real.
It,
California is not completely on fucking fire right now,
yeah,
which if anyone's listening from California, especially LA, we love you.
we
We're
love
thinking
you.
about you.
And I
Stay strong.
yes, I have seen a lot of resources. So maybe I'll link
Yes.
some resources that I've been vetted for that. And I know a lot of companies are also providing, some support and things like that. So again, feel free to reach out if you're looking for any resources. We're happy to connect you.
Yes.
Thank you for bringing that up, by the way.
Yeah.
That's devastating. And I think people it's interesting. I think the conversation around that very like tangentially
Yeah.
here, where people are really losing their empathy around people just because, yes, a lot of people will be able to rebuild because they have the funds. A lot of people won't because they don't. And
Yep.
empathy does not have like
A
it
class.
doesn't have a class. People losing your entire home, no matter how wealthy you are and how they still lost everything. And everybody look at Maslow's like triangle. Shelter is number two. Everybody's triangle of needs is the same. Number two is shelter. So everybody needs to just take a deep breath, put together,
Yes.
and as Mr. Rogers always said, look for the helpers, and we will provide some links there. Um, for that. So thanks for bringing that up.
Preach.
But yeah, it's going to be cold, and I hope everybody that is in the areas where it's going to be cold can take some time to listen to or watch this documentary because it's more of a listening one too. Like you can, there's a lot of like and it's great to see them and all that, but like to a certain degree, you can also just listen to it for the music, right? Like you just
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
This one's much slower than some of the
yep,
fast paced ones we've already had. But again, you also think about like, honestly, I don't feel like it was until maybe like 2012 ish that the production value of
right.
documentaries really kind of skyrocketed. So I agree. This one's a little bit slower. It's more of like an intimate conversation. The music is fantastic. So it may not be your cup of tea, and that's fine. But we're gonna pepper we're gonna have ones like the King of Kong to like we're gonna cover the whole spectrum. The King of Kong, we're gonna have heists. There's gonna be some heavy shit. And then we're gonna have like lovely little light conversations. Like it might get loud.
Yeah, and and me, I tend to read. I'm not a watcher of things, and I so far have loved every single one of the
I
documentaries.
love
Like
it.
it might get loud. I thought just opened my mind to like different thought process around music, which I truly appreciated. I mean, like we said, I think musicians really make us live in Technicolor in different ways. Um, and I haven't said this before. I've said it in my head, and sometimes I do that, but whatever. Um, but I think thinking through how you express yourself, right? And these musicians
Mm-hmm.
express themselves through music. So the big question is, how do you express yourself? I think that's what put myself in the like. It helps you kind of figure out what's the best way to express yourself. Is it through clothes? Is it through writing? Is it through dancing? Is it? And I think we all need a creative outlet, and I truly appreciated it getting me into that mind space, especially since it's the beginning of the year. People are looking for ways to like express themselves, think about different things. And I thought that was I really appreciated that. And always you never miss.
Oh,
You
thanks.
never
I'm
miss.
sure at some point I might.
I'll tell you.
Or there's gonna be one where oh, I know. Or there's gonna be one where you're gonna be like, why in the living fuck did you make me watch that? Because I was literally just looking through the list and I'm like, oh man, like which direction do we want to go next?
That's true. We need to figure out. So, again, watch this documentary. We highly recommend it. I think it's really a great conversation. It's really great
Yeah.
to see how these artists kind of formed and all of that, and how they got to
And
where they are.
it's never too late to become a fan of a band or a musician. So like maybe you've never listened to Led Zeppelin. Maybe, like I said, I've never been a massive U2 fan, but this time I watched it and now I've got a little bit more respect as opposed to the last time I watched this. Just reiterated my love of Jack White and Led Zeppelin, of course, but maybe you're newer to those bands or musicians. And listen, there's a certain point, and I've reached that point where like I don't listen to new music. I keep listening to all the stuff I know and love, but I'm always open to new bands, even if they've been around a while and I just are not new to me bands, I should say. So
You
maybe there will be a new band to you.
Yeah, you always learn more about it, and it opens up your thought process a lot. So that's why we recommend it. But the next, so as we always, we'll tell you what the next episode is, and it'll be a regularly scheduled episode. And this one's a doozy because we don't know where we're taking it, honestly. Yet. I mean, we'll probably be
Really?
more prepared. But we saw this article from the
I'm going to have AI write it.
Yeah, we're gonna have AI write it. About how some people are starting to form emotional attachments to AI chatbots or AI boyfriends and girlfriends that they pay to have conversations with them via typing. Um, yeah, so that's wild. And that's our next episode, kind of how AI chatbots are changing how people interact with
So many thoughts.
so many thoughts on introducing the concept, because some people might not know what an AI chatbot is, why some people are paying for it. So there'll be maybe a little bit more heavy on the background next time, but that's what we will be chatting about. And I don't know, Elaine, if you already have our next doc is in, because we can already.
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
So it's
honestly,
okay.
just because
then we'll do it next.
Yeah,
We'll do it next because this AI one is kind of living rent free in our heads, we think already. And only because, and I don't think I ever like fault people for, doing what they need to do, but it's wild. It's just wild. It's like kind of cultish to a certain degree. And we love cults.
Oh,
we love cults. And not.
Ooh,
and
you know what?
What do you want to do?
Maybe we go the cult route then.
Let's do it.
Right. I'm not going to call one out.
All right, but let's go the cult route, because it feels to a certain degree like a cultish thing to do somehow. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, and it's kind of feeling like, I get it, but then I don't get it, type of thing. So
yeah,
we'll have a little bit more background. It'll be a little bit more background heavy. But yeah, that's our next episode. And we will chat about that. And as always, we are open for comments, concerns, no insults, please. Be kind.
we're trying our best.
We are trying our best. Life is wild, and thanks as always for joining us. I know now we're published, so feel free to reshare, follow us on Instagram, email us, chat with us, and we're happy to talk and exchange ideas. But other than that, come by for our next episode, and Elaine, take us away.
I will take us away, but this time I will say that on our last episode, on our travel episode, you may have noticed that we cut off like right after our tagline. That sometimes I mess up. I go between stay interested and stay interesting. I don't know which one we're doing, but you should do both.
Do both.
But we had some computer technical difficulties. But you know what? Your girl stayed strong until exactly when we needed her to.
That's right.
So we apologize for cutting right off the end there.
But she did it.
But this time around,
the old girl did it. The old girl did it.
The old girl did it. But this time around, you will get a stay interested and have a lovely day. And we'll see you next time.